What's up, fighting fans? Tips from the Fight IQ channel. Today we're coming back for another episode of the Fight IQ show. I'm sure you guys miss me, but don't panic, I'm back to make your weekend easier. I'm gonna pick my favorite 3 fights to watch, then also mention some other bouts to keep your eyes on. So let's get ready to rumble! On the menu we have the Bellator Champion Series in Belfast on Friday 22nd, the Rizin Landmark 9 in Kobe, Japan on Saturday 23rd, Oktagon 55 in Stuttgart, Germany on Saturday 23rd, the LFA 179 in Rio, Brazil on Saturday 23rd, and finally the UFC Fight Night in Vegas on Saturday 23rd. Number 3, Peyton Talbott vs Cameron Saaiman. It will be in the UFC Fight Night in Vegas on Saturday 23rd. 2 young and highly skilled prospects from the bantamweight division, and they're both coming out the Dana White Contender Series. Talbott is 25 years old, 7-0, 6 finishes. He got his UFC contract after a promising performance last August during the Dana White Contender Series versus Reyes Cortez. And he made his UFC debut 3 months later versus Nick Aguirre. Impressive performance, he showcased a lot of skills, great striking, really composed, and able to finish the fight on the ground where he got the submission. He will now face another talented young man, Cameron Saaiman. Saaiman is 23 years old, 9-1, 7 finishes. He entered the UFC via the Dana White Contender Series, like his opponents, but he did it a year before, knocking out Josh Wang Kim in August from 2022. He also did his UFC debut the same year in December, and he TKO'd Steven Koslow in the 3rd round. And he had a busy year in 2023, 3 fights, 2 wins, a majority decision versus Mana Martinez in March, and a TKO versus Terence Mitchell in July. Finally, he lost versus Christian Rodriguez via unanimous decision last October. Both are really complete fighters, even though we saw them more comfortable in the striking department. I expect most of the fight to be a striking contest, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them test each other on the ground. It's difficult to say who will get that one. Saaiman has more fighting experience, but Talbot seems more UFC ready. He's more composed and seems less permeable to pressure. I would give him an edge on this one, and I think he will get the win via decision. Number 2, Corey Anderson vs Carl Moore. Main event of the Bellator Champion Series in Belfast on Friday 22nd, and it will be for the vacant light heavyweight title. Interesting matchup between 2 powerful veterans. First we have Corey Overtime Anderson, 34 years old, 17-6, 1 no contest, 8 wins by way of knockout. He was the winner of the Ultimate Fighter 19 back in 2014. He stayed 6 years inside the UFC, 10-5 there in the organization, and he fought the best light heavyweight in the world. He won versus Blachowicz, Glover Teixeira, Ilia Latifi, Johnny Walker, and he lost versus Shogun Rua, Ovin Semper, and Jimmy Manua. He left the UFC in 2020 after losing a rematch versus Jan Blachowicz, and he decided to go to Bellator, still fighting tough competition. He TKO'd Melvin Manhoef for his first appearance, and then he participated to the light heavyweight Grand Prix, where he TKO'd Yakshi Muradov and Ryan Bader before losing to Vadim Nemkov, the champ, via unanimous decision in November from 2022. His last fight was a win by a split decision versus Phil Davis. It was last June, and he will now face a veteran from the European scene and fighting in front of his own crowd, Carl Moore. Okay, Moore is Irish, but he is born in Belfast. 32 years old, 12-2, 7 finishes. He did most of his career on the European scene before becoming the Cage Warriors light heavyweight champion back in March 2017. He signed with Bellator in 2019 and is still undefeated there in 4 fights, including a win over Alex Polizzi via unanimous decision last June. I think he will have to step up for this fight, as Corey Anderson fought tougher opposition during his career. Moore got some submissions win in his resume. I think he should try to work that angle, because I don't see him having a chance versus Corey Anderson in a striking contest. I'm actually seeing a win via knockout for Corey Anderson if Moore doesn't succeed to bring the fight to the ground. And number 1, Amanda Ribas vs Rose Namajunas, main event of the UFC Fight Night in Vegas on Saturday 23rd. Best fight of the weekend in my opinion, but that's one that breaks my heart. It's two fighters that I really like by their fighting style, their journey and also their personalities. First we have Amanda Ribas, 12-4, 7 finishes. She started as a strawweight, compiling a record of 5-1 in less than 2 years on the Brazilian scene. She made her UFC debut in 2019, getting 4 wins in a row, including wins over Mackenzie Dern, Ronda Marcos, and Paige Van Zandt for flyweight debut in July of 2020. Since then, it's a bit more difficult for her. She's struggling to get a winning streak, but she's still fighting tough competition. She got TKO'd by Marina Rodriguez, unanimous decision over John Diroba, a loss by split decision versus Caitlin Chukagian, unanimous decision win over Vivian Araujo. She got TKO'd by Macy Barber, and in her last fight last November she won via TKO over Luana Pinheiro. It was a really great performance from her. She started the fight badly, was getting picked up by Pinheiro, but she turned things around to get that finish. She seemed to struggle mentally before, maybe even lacking confidence in herself, but in her last fight she seemed that she overcame this. She is also choosing a smarter way to fight, as she used to brawl and take too much damage before. She'll have to keep her momentum going facing a tough opponent, the former strawweight champion, Tug Rose Namajunas. Rose is 11-6, 7 finishes. She entered the UFC in 2014, losing the Ultimate Fighter 20 finale versus Carla Esparza. She had ups and downs in her career. She won versus tough opponents like Angela Hill, Tessia Torres, Michelle Watterson. She KO'd Joanna Jedrzejczyk to become the strawweight champion and beat her again for her first title defense. Then she lost her title, getting knocked out by Jessica Andrade in May of 2019. She had a difficult time mentally, but she came back. She won versus the same Jessica Andrade, who was not the champion anymore, in July 2020 via split decision. She faced the toughest challenge in her career in April of 2021, Zhang Weili, to try to get her belt back. And she shocked the world, knocking out Zhang Weili via a beautiful head kick in the first round, becoming strawweight champion for the second time. It was a really emotional time when she got her hand raised and during the interview with Joe Rogan in the Oktagon. One of my favorite moments in UFC history. She won again versus Zhang by split decision, this time in November of 2021, before losing her title to Carla Esparza in May of 2022. She decided to move up to flyweight last September, directly facing the top contender Manon Fiorot, but she lost via unanimous decision. I definitely see similarities between those two fighters in their journey, in the way that they sometimes struggle mentally, going up and down, even though only Rose got a title for now. I would give an edge to Ribas, who seems to have mastered her demons, and she comes out of a beautiful performance, while Tug Rose's state of mind is a bit concerning at the moment. Of course, I'm not counting her out, as she's able to do great things when she's 100% locked in. But still, I would say Amanda Ribas via decision. Some other fights might be fun to watch. Patricio Pitbull vs Jeremy Kennedy. It will be at Bellator Champion Series for the Featherweight Championship. Interesting matchup at lightweight, where Team Wild, a Bellator veteran, will face the Brazilian sensation Manuel Silva, undefeated in 10 fights with 9 finishes. Also, Sharon Clark vs Darius Maffey at bantamweight. It's interesting to see Clark going down at bantamweight while being undefeated in featherweight. At UFC Fight Night, I will be almost interested in every fight from the prelims. Severino vs Lima, 2 undefeated Brazilian flyweights, Nguyen vs Ahrens at featherweight, Miles Jones vs Cody Gibson at bantamweight, Trey Ogden vs Kurt Olobau at lightweight, and Luis Pajuelo, from who I waited patiently the UFC debut after his great performance during the Dana White Contender Series, will face Fernando Padilla at featherweight. I'll keep an eye on Oktagon 55, Rizin and LFA 179. There seems to be some nice prospects for the future. And we're done here. Now you know what to watch this weekend, guys. As usual, punch those like and subscribe buttons. It helps me a lot. Go hit the comments, Discord, Telegram, Instagram, whatever you're on, because I want your thoughts and picks on the coming matchups. Enjoy the fights. I'll see you next week.
right, but I might go lefty. I made plus with it, so don't test me. They wouldn't let me. Man's gal when I come undress me. Swing with the right, but I might go lefty. I made plus with it, so don't test me. Nah, you don't impress me, so don't test me. Nah, so don't test me. Nah, don't test me. You don't impress me, so don't test me. Nah, so don't test me. Nah, don't test me. Don't test. Don't test. Don't test.